Hi, and welcome back to Hill Ponton's VA Disability Blog. I'm Natalia Jofre, the company's COO.
And I'm attorney Melanie Williams.
And today, Melanie is going to be talking about overpayments.
Yes, not a
When,
topic that people really enjoy.
yeah, this is this is not a pleasant topic, folks. When the VA says I owe them money. So I guess the first thing would be, what is an overpayment? And
Yeah,
I know there's different kinds, but so in general, what would you say an overpayment is?
right. So it's basically when the veteran owes the VA money. So the VA determines that a payment was made to the veteran that was greater than what they should have received. So a debt is created. That debt is considered an overpayment. And usually what they do is they'll take out money from the future benefits that you will be receiving.
Okay. Is it possible for someone to accidentally be overpaid? Because I mean, overpayment sort of has like this inference of like you did something wrong. Can someone accidentally be overpaid?
Yeah, so if it's the fault of the VA, if it was something that the VA miscalculated or did wrong, that would be an accidental overpayment. Oftentimes, overpayments are created when, let's say, you are receiving dependent benefits and there was a change in your in the status of your dependents. So, for example, if a loved one, your spouse passed away, or if you got divorced, things like that, you are supposed to let the VA know right away, because if you don't, they're paying you more than you're entitled to. And so that overpayment is created. But if you did tell the VA and they didn't process that in time, then that would be something that is their fault. That was their mistake in handling that. And so that's an example of when you were accidentally overpaid or erroneously overpaid because of the VA.
So even though it's their mistake and you reported it, but they didn't adjust your benefits in time, that doesn't then forgive the fact that you've been overpaid. You're still going to have to pay that money back.
No, not necessarily. So
Okay.
they will likely still send you a letter and still tell you that this happened. But then you have things that you can do. You have ways that you can let them know that it wasn't your fault and you shouldn't have to pay that money.
Okay. Since we're talking about people making mistakes and errors being made, I can see how a person would accidentally be overpaid, but can they also mistakenly receive a letter of overpayment from the VA? Like, should you accept that their claim of an overpayment is accurate?
So what you'll want to do is kind of follow these next steps that we're going to go through to make sure that the overpayment is valid and accurate. It could be their mistake in processing, or it could have just been an error. But you never want to just assume that. So you'll want to do these next things that we're going to talk about to make sure that this overpayment is valid and kind of take the right steps. So the first thing that you'll want to do is dispute the validity or the amount. You'll basically want to request that the VA send you a copy of how they calculated the overpayment, and so
Hmm.
that'll show you, is this valid? Was this something that actually happened, or was it just a mistake?
Okay, so now, are there any special forms or anything specific you need to do in order to do that?
They will, in the letter that they send you, they will let you know how you can go about submitting this request or this dispute. The main thing that you'll want to keep in mind is that you have 30 days from the receipt of the notice of the overpayment. Well, if you file within those 30 days, the VA can't collect on the overpayment until the dispute is resolved. So you can still file it after the 30 days, but you'll want to make sure to get it in before that, because if it's pending a review, then they won't collect the overpayment during that time.
Okay, perfect. And from my conversation previously with Rachel, she was saying that right now, due to COVID, they're not collecting on debts. But I think it is important, two things, I guess. One, that they're making an allowance. So people right now that are undergoing a financial hardship should know that that's not something that the VA is pressing. But two, it also doesn't mean that they're being forgiven. I mean, eventually they want their money back. So whether it's now or a couple of months from now, they're still going to pursue that money if it is in fact valid.
Right.
a valid overpayment.
Yeah.
So I've heard about waivers.
Mhm.
So how do you do one? When do you do one? So I'm assuming it's not always applicable. What do you recommend?
Yeah, so a waiver is basically a cancellation of the overpayment. So future benefits would not be withheld. You'll want to request this within 180 days from the day that you receive the notice. But just like requesting the dispute, if you do it within 30 days, they won't withhold money until they decide the request. So that key number is 30 days. You want to always make sure that you get it in so that you're not having to pay the money in the meantime. Now, the VA is going to look at certain factors. So when you are requesting that waiver, you're going to want to make sure to bring these things up to them. First is they're going to look at if it's the fault of the veteran. Did you purposely mislead the VA? That's
Mm-hmm.
something that they're going to be looking for. They'll also be looking if it was the fault of the VA, if it was an error that they made. But they'll also be looking at undue hardship. And that's something that I want to stress that a veteran can bring up. So if you are relying on this check from the VA for your everyday necessities,
Mm-hmm.
your food, your clothes, your rent, if this is your only source of income and you are living paycheck to paycheck from these benefits, the VA will take that into consideration if it's going to be an undue hardship on you. They'll also look at if it defeats the purpose of the original benefit that you're getting. So, for example, if they granted you pension benefits, pension is based on income, it's based on need. So, if they are giving you these benefits based on your need, but then they're taking them away, you're still going to need them. So they're going to consider, what the cause of those benefits are. They're also going to look at unjust enrichment. So on the other side of that is, are you getting these benefits more than you should be getting because of your own fault? Things like that. But they'll also look at a worsening of financial position. So the best example of this is if you took out a loan, depending
Mm-hmm.
on these VA benefits, they're going to consider that as well. So again, how much you rely on this money is what they'll be taking into account when deciding a waiver,
Okay.
whether or not to grant a waiver.
Okay. When you say, you took out a loan, I know, of course, a lot of veterans get VA home loans. So if could that be a good example where, they owe $1,500 a month for their mortgage, and without their check, they would not be able, or their full check, they would not be able to make their full mortgage payment, where that could be considered for a potential waiver?
Right. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
That would be a good example of that.
Okay. I've also read that hearings are an option. So when is that applicable and how is that helpful?
Yes, you can always request a hearing. Again, if you do it within the 30 days, they can't start collecting during that time. And it is going to be helpful because it'll give you an opportunity to bring up all these things that we discussed with the waiver. You'll be able to do all of it right there before the decision maker. So that is helpful. And another thing that you can do is offer a compromise, which is something that, might sound strange and a lot of veterans don't consider, but you can offer to pay less than the total overpayment to settle the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And you can ask for that anytime after you receive the notice. So that is a possibility. You can do all those things. I mean, we would recommend doing all of them, not just one. Go ahead and dispute the amount, request the waiver, request the hearing, to see what your options are and what you can get.
Okay, great. Can I appeal this in any way? That's the question we're getting from veterans.
Yes, so you can appeal it, and again, in that notice that you receive, they will explain how to go about the appeals process, so that you can again dispute, all these issues, and then if they issue, like a denial for a waiver, you can then continue appealing that as well.
Okay. Do we handle these cases? Does our firm handle overpayment cases?
So if you are one of our clients, and this happens, we will look into it for you. We will help you figure out how to go about it. It's not something that we will, it's not the only issue that we will help with. So if you come to us with an overpayment, it's not something that we'll be able to look into and figure out for you. But if you are already one of our clients, then we definitely will.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Melanie. That was really helpful. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to visit our website or call our office.